Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our session today, which is manage your energy and not your time, which I think is the new thing that is trending, right? So we thought, why not we just go ahead and ask Ashton to do a session on the same to understand what is it all about. And a quick fact, Ashton is our second trainer who's doing a second session for us for Ethica, in fact. So thank you so much, Ashton, for agreeing to do this for us and all our esteemed, participants today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So yeah, over to you, Ashton.
Fantastic. All right. So welcome. Like I said, this is going to be your session. This is not me coming here to give a talk to y'all. So what I would strongly suggest is let's open up that chat box, drop a message, and let's communicate with each other a lot. Just like let's, blow up that chat box as much as we can. And I want to start it off by asking y'all a question. How many of y'all have at some point of time searched about time management or have gone for a time management workshop or a time management seminar, etc.? How many of y'all have gone? If y'all have, just say yes or me or something in the chat box. Lovely. Nishant has been there. Yeah. Fantastic, right? All the time. I love it. When I just started my corporate career many, many, many moons ago, at that time management had become the big buzzword. Oh, I love that. Now time to go. High five. I love it. So at that point of time management had become the big buzzword. Everyone was talking about time management. I must have gone for some 4 time management seminars at some point of time in my life. And when I became a habit coach and I started working with consumers and clients and all of that, I suddenly realized that everyone has this issue about time, but they don't know what to do about it. And they couldn't figure out exactly what it was. So I deep dived into it and then created this structure for understanding time and energy management. You see, let me take you back a little bit. Where did this whole idea of time management start from? It's actually a fascinating journey. So before time management or before we started the industrial revolution, we were in the agricultural revolution, which was farming, etc. There was endless amounts of time. There wasn't like we had to be sowing seeds in the next 5 minutes and then watering them the next 10 minutes afterwards. Nothing of that was happening. But during the industrial revolution, we suddenly needed to be on time because we started creating this thing called shift workers. Well, I've heard of shift workers, right? Shift and next shift, next shift, next shift. And as a result, because of the Industrial Revolution, we started this whole process of focusing on structured time. And it was then where all these techniques that we talk about now about time management started, because they were constantly looking for that efficiency. It wasn't that the machines were getting tired. It wasn't that the people were getting tired. It was that they were running out of time. So as a result, the more you could pack into that shift, the better it was. And hence, all the time management principles that we learn are all about this. How much stuff can you push into this amount of time? But you know this better than anyone. How many of us have actually gone through the day and around this time, 3:30, 4:30, felt so tired that we're just waiting for the day to end, right? What happens? We go through this phase of thinking that, I have enough time till the day is over, but I have run out of energy now. And that is the key thing that today's workplace we're running out of. We're running out of energy. It is not that we're running out of time, especially since our days are no longer structured, right? You wake up in the morning and as soon as you start your phone and you check your first email, you started working technically, correct? So technically, we don't have any structured time. So as a result, what happens? As a result, we go into this whole cycle of thinking about, I am tired, there's enough energy, etc. Not tired is tomorrow, Saturday. Yay, we're waiting for Saturday to come. I love it. Okay, so it's important for us to realize that this whole cycle of energy and time is critical for us to start balancing with. And like I said, I'm a habit coach. So let me quickly tell you what habit coaching is. I don't know if you all were part of my previous workshop that I did for Ethica, but if you all weren't, let me just quickly tell you all about it. I started this whole category called habit coaching because I realized that it was something that was essential, that our lives were made up of all the small habits that we do every single day. All the tiny actions that we take every day, all the various thoughts that we have every day. All those things are nothing but our habits. And I realized that the quality of our lives that we live are nothing but the habits that we create. So if you want to lead a fantastic quality of life, all you have to do is have fantastic habits. And that is the way to start thinking about this particular situation. Okay. So what I do is I focus on us deep diving into different habits that we can create for ourselves. So even today's session is going to be divided into structured thoughts, but what we can do about them. So my whole funda is, how do we create action oriented learnings? So how do we learn something and immediately start implementing that into our life? Right? Because if it's not action oriented, what is the point? Right? I'm wasting my time, you're wasting your time. Rather, we're wasting each other's energy. Okay. So let's start thinking about our life in terms of our habits and the kind of energy that we bring into the day. Making sense so far? All right. Give me a thumbs up. Say yes. Let's continue the chitter chatter. Fantastic. All right. Lovely. So from today onwards, start thinking about energy, not about time. And it all starts by understanding what is time. Whenever we think about time, we think about it as something that's finite, something that is slipping through our fingers. We think of an hourglass and we watch the sand coming out and we see, oh my God, time's passing, time's passing, time's passing. We see a clock and we see the tick, 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 and we see the time is going away. And we get obsessive about time, you know, but there are people who are doing so much with the same 24 hours that we are not managing to do, right? It doesn't make sense. So there must be something clearly beyond time that those people have realized that we haven't figured out. How are people running 7 businesses in the same 24 hours that we have? Right? Something must be different. So let's divide or just dive into what is it that they are doing, learning from them, and then getting those best practices as habits back into our life. Okay. So the first broad category of things, and you can write this down if you want, you can take notes, you can ask questions. We're going to have a full half an hour session on just question answers after this. So keep your questions ready, keep sending in questions. Like I said, let's keep it interactive. So the first entire section that we're going to focus on is how to create boundaries. Okay. How to create boundaries. Now, this whole word called boundaries has suddenly become very, very popular. If you're on social media or if you're on any of these motivational videos that you see, focus on your boundaries, maintain your boundaries. Everyone's talking about boundaries. But what exactly are boundaries? So let's deep dive and understand into that. Boundaries are nothing but your principles and your rules that you create for yourself. Okay? The principles and the rules that you create for yourself. A boundary is nothing but a demarcation between something and something else. So when we talk about boundaries, there are demarcation between you and, for example, the outside world. So what demarcates you from somebody else? The way that you think, the way that you behave, your thought processes, your principles. Okay. So the first thing is, when we think about our boundaries, have set principles in your life that you're going to be setting up for it. Okay. Now, when we think about boundaries, the first thing I want to think about is, when will you start your working day? This is something that is very, very critical, especially when we went through this whole phase last 2 years on this working from home, etc. That boundary between work and home, work and personal life started blurring. As soon as you woke up, you checked your alarm, you checked your email, you were working. Many people I know, many of my clients would wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, check their phone at 4 o'clock, and then would start emailing at that point of time. Right? The boundaries were blurred. And if you're constantly in this blurred boundary, you're constantly wasting energy, because you're never completely in relaxation mode or you're never completely in work mode, right? You're always in this limbo state, right? And you will notice this, that your work suffers, but also your family life suffers, your personal life suffers, right? This is because this boundary is so blurred. So maintaining that working start time is very, very important for us. If you can, talk to your team, talk to your boss, figure out ways in which that you can make this set working time something that you can incorporate in your life. So a starting time and an ending time for your day is very, very important. Because remember, those shift workers, they had that set time that they're working, right? Even in the entire Bollywood and entertainment industry, they have 12 hours of a shift that they all follow. So they have a set time that they're following. It's just that us, we don't have that. So let's start creating that set time for ourselves, for our boundary. Okay. So that is the first way that we can check our boundaries. The second one is knowing when and where you're going to get your drip of work. Now, what I mean by drip of work is every time you check your phone, you're technically getting drip of work information into your life, right? You're getting either a WhatsApp that is a work oriented WhatsApp, or you're getting an email that's a work oriented email. So, one of the things that you can do is stop checking your email on your phone. Now, I know this might sound like a very scary thing for many of us to start doing, because that is where a large part of work takes place. But imagine if you had a structured time for your email. You know, there are certain jobs that we have that are not mission critical for replying to emails immediately, right? We can, what we call, batch process emails. We can put everything together and do it at one time. In the same way, what we're doing is we are focusing our energy into that one task at a time. Otherwise, what's happening, every time an email comes, you're mentally switching from one task to another. You're mentally switching from whatever it is you were doing at that point of time to something else. So as a result, this switch is completely confusing for the brain. This is something that we can start changing in the way that we start incorporating our life. Okay. Many people talk about multitasking, right? And we're going to deep dive into it a little later. But this whole concept of multitasking doesn't exist. And this is why right now I want to start talking about boundaries. And then later on, we're going to be talking about deep work, where this whole concept of, multitasking, single tasking, one thing at a time comes in. Okay. So second habit is try focusing on not reading your emails on your phone. Get a set time when you're going to go through all your emails, reply to everything, because you're going to be in the right mind space and the right energy space for it. All right. So I hope you guys are taking notes, deciding what of these habits you're going to incorporate into your life. The next thing I want to talk about is how do we manage our energy in terms of our family time and our work time. Okay. If you are at the dining table and we suddenly get put on our work hat, what is happening? We are missing out on that family time. We're missing out on that personal time. And I'm sure we've all had these fights at home, right? Where your family wants to spend time with you, your partner wants to spend time with you, but in your head, you're somewhere else. You're thinking about work, or an email has come in, or a WhatsApp has come in, and you're distracted. This is because that line, that boundary between work and home has been blurred. So maintaining that boundary is very, very essential, especially in your personal life. So if you are on holiday somewhere, if you have an off day, at that point of time, if you're focusing on work, this boundary is going to be blurred. But at the same time, if you're at work and you're thinking about what's happening at home, if you are at work and you're thinking about your family life, if you're at work and you're constantly messaging, what's going to happen? That boundary line is also going to be blurred. So it works both ways, you see. Normally it is not just about work in corporate jumping into your family life, but sometimes it is about family life jumping into your work life as well. So maintaining that boundary is very critical. I remember years ago when the mobile phone just started coming into our lives. This is way before WhatsApp and everything. We were all instructed in our offices to keep that mobile phone in the drawer away from us, right? Because it was a distraction at that point of time, and we realized this. And I'm talking about many, 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 more than a decade or so ago. It was always kept away because we did not want that interfering in our life. And now, many a times at work, we have our video call on with a friend or somebody else, or every time somebody is messaging on a friends group is popping up at work. So creating this boundary is so important, because otherwise you're constantly in this state of, am I having fun right now? Am I recharging right now? Or am I working right now? And that is where, our bodies and our time and our energy cannot coexist. Okay. So the first one is creating healthy boundaries, using these various techniques to figure out where you lie and what principles you're going to create for yourself. And remember, it's about maintaining that energy during those principles. All right. So that is critical. The second broad category that I want to jump into is this concept called rest and recovery. Okay. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because normally we get this whole thing completely wrong. How many of us have gone for a holiday and come back tired, right? We've come back from a holiday and said, oh my God, I'm so tired that I need another holiday after this. It happens all the time to us because we are constantly choosing the wrong kind of activities to be recovery activities. We're choosing the wrong kinds of things for us to focus on as recharging activities every weekend. Yeah, exactly. I know so many people who are like, oh my God, it's Sunday already. Tomorrow's Monday. What's going to happen? I was supposed to be resting and relaxing, and then suddenly the weekend is gone, the holiday is gone. Right? This is the problem that we all face because we don't know how to recharge. Our phones, we all know how to recharge, right? We plug it in and we stay away from it and it recharges. If we plug it in and we're still using it, doesn't recharge as fast. Correct? So in the same way, we have to realize what happens with us and our brains when we think about recharging. So the first rule is that we are never completely resting and we need to learn to switch off. Okay. What happens in our life is that we've been taught that if you're doing nothing, you are wasting time. Correct? No? If you're doing nothing, you're wasting time. Arey, do something. What is wrong with you? Right? And as a result, again, notice the word, you're wasting time. Time is going past. You're wasting your life. Life is going past. But you don't realize that this was an essential part for creating this energy so that you can fulfill more and do more with your time when the time is right. Okay. So the first thing is understanding that doing nothing is a very important part of resting and recovering. And as your habit coach, I am giving you full permission to do nothing. Okay. I want you to do nothing when you're resting and recharging. It is not that you need to be like, I have like a 1 hour break. Let me quickly go for a walk and listen to a podcast and do this and that and all. Too much. Okay. I want to give you permission that if you feel like, just pour yourself a nice hot chai. If it's beautiful weather outside, like it is right now today in Bombay, sit by the window, sip your tea, just looking out. The kind of recovery that you will get from this is so deep, so powerful that actually when you go back to work, you'll have so much more energy to put in. Otherwise, most of us are constantly operating on that quarter tank, quarter tank, quarter tank. It is like when our cars run out of petrol, we go and say, where 500 ka dalo, put 500 rupees in, put 500 rupees in, put 500. And we're constantly going and needing to fill up, fill up, fill up, fill up. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to completely rest, get a full tank of fuel so that you can then be active for far longer than this constant need for recharging and breaks and breaks and breaks and breaks and breaks. Okay. Spending time looking out of the window is one of the most beautiful things. Go and do nothing. If you go for a walk, don't carry your phone, don't carry your music, don't carry your podcast, don't carry your audiobook, nothing. Just spend time walking, looking at the people and enjoying yourself. This is what the natural state of the body is supposed to be. Okay. If we don't do that, we are constantly going to be running on empty. Making sense? Yeah. So this is such an important activity. And you, like I said, have my full permission to do this. Okay. In fact, I used to tell my clients as well. This was to a CEO of a company. And he used to pack his meetings in like, every 15 minutes there was a new meeting. It was like fast, 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 fast. And I said that where is your time for your brain to receive and to process all the things that you've learned from all these meetings, all the decisions that you've taken in all these meetings? And we actually created a half an hour slot for him to sit and do nothing. I was telling him something interesting that most CEOs and CXOs have a sofa in their cabin. Have you noticed that? What is the sofa for? It is not for group meetings. It is actually to lie down and do nothing because many of them realize that that is the key step that they need to be doing in order for the rest of the day to be as supercharged as possible. There are many owners of businesses who start their day at 8:30, come in before everyone else, leave at 9:30 after everybody else, but they take these breaks so that they have the energy for the rest of the day. Okay, so please start taking breaks in your day and start doing that, scheduling them in so that you actually become stronger and have more energy. Okay. The last thing I want to say on this is, guys, Netflix is not doing nothing. Okay. Netflix is not rest and recovery. It is not recharging yourself like many people think. What do you do in your free time to rest and recover? I watch Netflix. Have you guys ever watched Netflix for 5 hours and gotten off the sofa saying, "Oh my God, I'm so tired"? Has that happened? It happens to us all the time because Netflix and watching TV, etc. I know I'm pushing and leaning hard on Netflix, not just Netflix, as all the other channels as well. When we binge watch something, it is tiring to the body because there is so much stimulation that is coming in that we're processing. It is just that our bodies are not moving, but our minds are still processing it. Our eyes are getting tired. We're still facing a screen. So don't think about all the TV that we do, all the YouTubing that we do, all the sitting on the computer that we do as a break. Even gaming is not a break. It is still energy draining. A break is doing nothing. All right. So I hope I have driven this point home, because if we don't know how to plug in our phone, it's going to run out of juice. In the same way, if we don't know how to plug in ourselves, we are going to run out of juice. And if we don't have energy, what is the point of this entire conversation, right? It is energy management. So we need energy to be managing. The time we all have, time that's going over tick, 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 tick. That's perfectly fine. But the energy is what it is that we are lacking currently. For all those who've joined, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please open your chat box, start talking to us, and join into the conversation. Overthinking in planning to complete tasks draining energy. Very good question here. So let me quickly touch upon this and then we can jump into it in the Q&A section as well. Okay. So overthinking, over planning, you'll notice that you create 200 tasks to do in a day, but end up only doing 5, right? That is because we are overwhelmed by the amount of work that we have to do, but we have no ability to do it. So we will talk about scheduling and task and creating all of that in the Q&A section. All right. Shiva, just make note of that so that we can put it in.
On it.
Fantastic. All right. Lovely. So now that we've understood this whole concept of energy, where is our energy coming from? What we have to do is now we have to learn how to use and utilize this energy so that we are extremely efficient. You know what is efficiency? Efficiency is the whole concept of the way that the energy is used and the output of work that takes place by the amount of energy that you put inside. Right now, how many of you are engineers? You will probably faint at that definition, but it is close to it. Okay, so the idea is, how do we get more efficient at what we're doing? That means, how do we use lesser energy to get more work done? Right? Ultimately, that is the idea. And the same way, and there's one beautiful thought that I want to leave with everybody. There's this word called deep work. Okay, you can write it down in your notebooks. Deep work. Deep work is what? Deep work is when you are only focused on this one task that you're going to be doing. Many of us don't do deep work. If I actually asked you to write down a list of all the things that you did in one day, you would realize that it was all very, very surface level stuff. You did a little bit of this, then you went and did a little bit of that, then you went and did a little bit of that. As things started flying towards you, you started dealing with it. There was no focus to what it was that you were doing. And deep work is critical in doing this. So, for example, when I work on a podcast, so I didn't say this during my introduction, but I have a podcast called the Habit Coach Podcast, and we are now 800 episodes in. Okay, so now imagine we've been doing this for 800 episodes over the last 4 years. And for each episode, I have to write a 700-word document. It's almost like writing a chapter in a book every day. Now, for that, I have to focus on that one task only, because otherwise it goes all over the place. I remember the first time I had to write these 700 works, it took me 3 hours to write it down. But when I learned about these techniques like deep work, focus, templatization, I brought it down to about 45 minutes to half an hour per episode. Now just see how efficient that has become, right? And I finished this and I'm full of energy. It hasn't been a drain because now I've learned this idea of deep work. What happens in deep work? Deep work is focused work. That means nothing else happens while you're doing this one task. And the technique that has become very, very popular is a technique called as the Pomodoro technique for deep work. Okay, the Pomodoro technique, many of you might have heard of. I'm just going to touch upon it. And for those who haven't, I'll deep dive on it as well. The Pomodoro technique is beautiful. It is basically 20 to 25 minutes of deep work. That means you only chosen one task that you're going to do. And with that one task, nothing else is supposed to distract you. That means your WhatsApp is off, your WhatsApp desktop definitely off, your email is off, no YouTube, no nothing. You're not going to go and do any research work during this time, unless it's a research project that you're working on. You're going to just focus on that one task that you have set up for yourself to finish in that 25 minutes. So say you're working on a presentation, you're only going to be working on that one presentation for 25 minutes. After that, you can take either a 10-minute or a 5-minute break. So if you've done 20 minutes and then 10-minute break, or if you've done 25 minutes, 5-minute break. What happens with that 5-minute break? You get up, you check your phone, you do everything that in your mind you wanted to do during those 25 minutes, and then you come back and then you start the next cycle again. Now, 4 of these form one cycle of your Pomodoro. Okay. So basically in this process, you've done deep work for about 2 hours, right? Now, I can't tell you just how powerful this technique is. I remember there was a client of mine who, when we started working together, she was all over the place in terms of her work. And when I taught her this Pomodoro technique, and we were a little bit more strict, and I'll tell you the stricter version of this, you're not going to hate it, but I'll tell you the stricter version of this. What happened was all the work that she was taking and doing in her 7 hours of work, she started finishing in 2.5 hours. That means she finished her entire day's work in 2.5 hours. She was like, Ashdin, I have no idea where I was spending my energy. Where did this go? Right? How is it that I've been managing to do this? It is because most of us lack focus when we work. Ask yourself this. Do you focus when you're doing one thing? Or do you suddenly get distracted by somebody talking to you? Do you get distracted by your phone ringing? Do you get distracted by a thought that you have? What am I going to eat for lunch? What is going to happen in the evening? That movie that we were supposed to go watch, right? There are so many things that come and distract us and steal our focus away. Energy management is maintaining focus. It is focus management. Because just like a magnifying glass that focuses the light of the sun into one spot, if we can focus our energy on one task, it cannot withstand it. It will finish fast. We will become more efficient. And we have to start thinking about our minds like magnifying glasses. How do we focus and learn to create focus? Something that's very important. Okay. If this is something that you're going to work on, please type in focus on the chat so that I know that this is something that I've driven home, because many of us miss this out. It is something that we don't, think about this. If you've typed focus is a promise to me that you're going to, at least work towards it. I'll teach you a very nice habit that you can practice at home called focus. If you all are into yoga, etc., you all would know this technique, tatrak, right? Which is where you put a flame in front of you and you sit and you just look at that flame. Okay. So you're looking at that flame or you're looking at that one spot with complete focus. No thoughts are coming and distracting you. If they are coming, you just focus back on that flame or that spot that you have. Okay. It is absolutely brilliant to teach you this. Earlier on, in fact, I did a podcast on this, saying that what you have to do is, if this is your work desk, on the wall in front, you have to take a pen and make one small dot there so that you can focus on that dot every day when you are sitting down to work. So it teaches you how to focus. And then I had a client's mother complain to me saying that, My daughter has gone and put dots all over the house. So after that, I've changed that technique of putting a dot on your wall. So please don't do that and ruin the offices of or your home. You'll get a beating. But instead, focus on a spot that you can, and then you will know how you train this muscle. You know, we all think of focus wrongly. Many of us think of I have focus or I don't have focus, right? Some people are more focused than me. We all have the ability to focus. It is just that focus is like a muscle. If we don't train our muscle, it's not going to work. It's not going to become bigger. In the same way, if you don't train your focus, you're not going to be able to focus. Okay. So learning how to focus on that one spot day in, day out is going to help. What I would suggest, start off with just 1 minute of looking at a spot, like I'm looking right now at the camera only. Looking at that spot, just 1 minute, soft gaze. You don't have to like focus and like keep your eyes like, "Argh." No, just soft gaze at the camera or at the spot. Start off with 1 minute. Then if it becomes easier, 2.5 minutes. If it becomes easier, move to 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't do more than 10 minutes, because then you'll be wasting your energy unnecessarily on focusing on a dot where you can be focusing on your work or your family or anything else in your life. Okay. So learning to focus is very, very important. Now, the second part of the Pomodoro technique in deep work is only work when it's work time. I would strongly suggest that you all don't do the Pomodoro technique if you're sitting at home and it wasn't meant to be work time, right? If it was something that you just have to finish off quickly, just finish off quickly. Don't have to do Pomodoro technique then. But when you have that focus time that you're going to spend maybe the next 2 hours, next 4 hours doing these tasks, put it down. So the way that I have it is I have a Pomodoro 25-minute session for all my emails during the day. Shiva will know this. I don't reply to emails immediately. It's always batch process. Suddenly he'll get his emails either in the morning or in the afternoon, right? So it is always batch process, because I know that when I'm replying to Shiva, I only want to be replying there. I don't want other distractions coming in. In the same way, when I'm working on my podcast, I only want to be focusing there. If I'm working on something else, if I'm working on one of the other companies, only focusing there. Okay, so that creating that focus, that deep, deep work is essential for all of us. Using the Pomodoro technique, like I said, is a brilliant way of doing this. And the more you practice it, the better you will become at it. Okay. You all remember the Pomodoro technique? Just to reiterate, if you all want, you all can put it down in the chat box. 20 minutes or 25 minutes of deep work, which is focused work, no distractions, and 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a break. This becomes one Pomodoro cycle. Okay. Oh, I had to tell you about the evil version of the Pomodoro cycle. Okay, so the evil version that I made my client do was, if you get distracted during the 20-25 minute time frame, you have to start all over again from that first minute of 20. So say 10 minutes are over and suddenly you get an email and you are distracted by that email, you have to start the timer again. Okay, this is almost like a negative reinforcement to make sure that you get your Pomodoro in. And you can think of the break as your positive reinforcement after that. All right. So you guys are going to do the Pomodoro technique. Okay. This is really, really going to help you with your energy management, because it is not about, getting more work done. It is about being efficient. It is about your energy versus the amount of work that you're putting out. Nobody wants you to work more. Everyone wants you to work better. That is the key thing. All right. The fourth aspect, we just finished deep work. Now we're getting into a topic called inner work. Okay. Deep work is all about what? Focus. Inner work is what about? Inner work is all about getting rid of our, then what about multitasking? All right. Before coming to inner work, let me finish the multitasking bit question. Multitasking is a very, very misunderstood concept. All right. How many people here think that they can multitask? If you think that you're a good multitaskers, type MT in the box. M and T. Okay. I want to see how many of you all think that you're a good multitaskers. All right. So Amira, so you automatically think that you're a good multitasker. MT, I love that. That is exactly what it is. It's empty because you don't end up doing anything properly. All right. So lots of you all think that you're multitaskers. All right, I am going to destroy this notion for you all. So please, I hope you all are sitting down. There is no such thing as multitasking. In fact, in a neuroscience experiment, that means they were looking at the brain, they realized that the brain could not handle two things happening at the same time. The brain could either do one thing and then switch quickly to do the second thing, and then switch quickly back to the first thing, and then switch. So it was always switching from task to task. So there is no multitasking. That means three, four tasks happening at the same time. It was always task switching. It was this and then this and this and this and this and this. And what was interesting was that there was always a overlap that happened at that point. That means that, for example, if I was working on a presentation and you sent me an email and I picked up that email and I was writing that email, I was still at some point of time taking time to transfer my energy from writing this presentation to that email. So as a result, there was so much energy wastage that was taking place in the multitaskers. This is why when we think about multitasking, it is a complete misnomer. It is one aspect of your brain completely switching off. So, for example, we think that we are multitasking when we are driving to work, right? And listening to a podcast at the same time. You reach work, you've driven all the way there, but you don't know how you've reached. So you think you multitask. But actually, you've gone into what is known as a default network. It's gone into your habits. Your habit of driving there has been set up. You can't do that going into exactly default mode network, DMN. You can't go into that. You can't have driven to office if it was the first time driving there while listening to a podcast. It would have been too distracting for you. So as a result, what we need to do is understand that this multitasking does not take place. And from today, try this focused work and see if your energy improves and the way that you manage your time improves. All right. When it is time to do one thing, finish it, then move to the next. I'll give you my favorite example right now, and I know you all will relate to this, of what multitasking we do. We sit in front of the TV, which is the big screen. We have our laptops on front of us, which is the medium screen. And while our laptops and the TV, we pick up our phone and check our WhatsApps, right? We have three different screens that are all running together. TV was on for entertainment, then you started searching on something on your computer for more entertainment, then you looked at your phone for even more entertainment. We are constantly in this state of hyper stimulation. There is so much happening to us that is depleting our energy constantly. We're so tired at the end of the day from this. Those of you who are addicted to to Instagram and scrolling on your phones will recognize this, right? That you get tired at the end of the day from just scrolling, because your mind is processing so much information. Yeah, there you go, Nina. Absolutely. And what's interesting that takes place is that, talking from an energy management point of view, is that the body has a very interesting network of facial recognition, right? Because we were meant to recognize faces when we were living in tribes. But when we are scrolling through Instagram, there's so many faces that are constantly being bombarded with us that it drains our energy, because you're constantly trying to remember, do I know this face? Do I know this face? Do I know this face? Who is this? Who is this? Who is this? So as a result, it's a big, big drain on the system. So I would put your Instagram and your socials, scrolling along with the Netflix that we discussed a little earlier. Okay. So think about using it consciously, not just all the time. All right. Coming back, I hope I answered the multitasking one. If you have more questions, we'll deep dive into it at the end of the session during the question answers. All right. Then we come to inner work. So we've finished deep work. Now we're talking about inner work. Inner work is all the stuff that you're carrying in you. What does that mean? It is all the emotions that have been unprocessed. It is all the thoughts that you have that have been unprocessed. It is all the events of yesterday that you're bringing into your today. Those things happened yesterday, but you're still thinking about them right now. It's Friday. You're going to go and have a beautiful weekend tomorrow, but you're going to be thinking about what happened today, tomorrow. You're going to be thinking about what's going to happen on Monday during the weekend. And it is that we do not have this kind of shift that we create because we've not worked on ourselves and our inner work. So getting rid of all the past conditioning that we have, getting rid of all the feelings that we are carrying that have been unprocessed. What does that mean? You had a wife, you had a fight with your spouse at home, and you've come to work. What's going to happen? You're going to be carrying that fight into work. You haven't done the inner work to make sure that it has been left at home. You know, one typical fight is that, the child was not ready on time, so you had to go and drop the child to school, and then you got late while coming to office, and then you're carrying all this agitation and everything into your office space. Technically, the office space did nothing to you, right? Technically, when you have had a bad day at work and you take that home, the home didn't do anything to you, but you're still taking out that experience that happened at work on your family at home, in the same way that you're taking the experience that happened at home on your colleagues at work. Okay, so doing inner work is very, very important. One way of doing inner work is just journaling every day. Okay, what is journaling? You basically take a book like this and you just write in it. Okay, you set a timer on your watch for 10 minutes and you just start writing. What do you write about? Anything that comes to your mind. It is free flowing journaling. That means you keep writing any thoughts that keep coming to your mind. So sometimes you might start off by saying, "Oh, wow, what a fantastic weekend I've had. I can't wait for the next one to come." And then, and you will suddenly start realizing that if you do this for close to 10 minutes, all the things that were unprocessed have now been processed out on that paper. It's all come out on that paper. And you don't have to carry it with you anymore because your mind now is a little bit more calm that it's out on that paper. Otherwise, it is constantly being held in your mind. You're constantly thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. This way, you're putting it on paper and it's gone. The same way, when you're going home, what are the things that you will do to make sure that your day ends on your journey back home? So one of the things I used to tell my clients is that when you're going home, if you are, for example, not driving, if you are either taking an Uber or if you're in a bus or if you're in a train, what you do is you put on your headphones and you listen to a mindfulness meditation. You do your breathing exercises. You do anything that is going to create that sense of calm so that when you reach home, you finish doing your inner work so that home now is a place when you can rest, recover, recuperate for the next day to come. Otherwise, we're constantly carrying this into that. We're not doing the inner work and we're agitated. You know, when we have unprocessed feelings and we're constantly thinking about things that have happened in the past, we are wasting so much of our energy. In fact, when we do our stress workshops, we talk about this thing called a mind worm. I think I touched upon it in the last workshop as well. Oh, lovely. You'll have 15-minute guided meditation. Brilliant. Do check that out. So I'd spoken about mind worms in the previous workshop, where I said mind worms are those continuous thoughts that we have in our mind. We went for a party and we overheard a friend of us saying, "Are that Ashdin is so stupid." And then you're thinking, why did he call me stupid? What happened? What did I do? Right? You go home, you're lying down in your bed and you're thinking, why did they say that I'm stupid? Is there something wrong with me? You're having a bath in the next morning and you're thinking, but why did they say I'm stupid? And in the bath is when you get your best ideas of, I should have said that back to them. They're like, no, you are stupid. I'm not stupid. you know, but we're constantly wasting so much of our energy with this unfinished thinking that is going on. And I know you're probably nodding along to this and have experienced this every day. You're sitting at work, but you're thinking about somebody else. You're sitting at work, you're thinking about something else. It is because we haven't finished doing that inner work that is needed for us to be able to focus on the deep work that needs to be done. Okay. So doing your inner work, even though it sounds airy fairy, even though it sounds a little woo woo, what is this inner work nonsense? No, it is very, very important for us to be in this state of calm, be in this state of peace, for our energy to ultimately bloom. Okay. If it doesn't bloom, what is the point? If you don't have that energy for the rest of the day, what is the point? Okay. So now that you have these concepts of deep work, inner work, everyone with me so far? All good? I'm going to quickly take a sip of water because there is something in my throat. And then we're going to jump into scheduling. I love that. Yash, Saurav, you all completed each other's. One did a Y, one did an S. Fantastic. All right. So now let's talk about scheduling. When we think about scheduling, what is it? uh, it always reminds me of this person I knew, a friend actually, who had this fantastic calendar that she had set up on her phone. And she said, Ashton, I put all my appointments on your phone. And then what do you do? I miss all of them. It's like, that is not scheduling. In fact, I once told my client that, I want you to start using a calendar. And she sent me a calendar. It was minute by minute what she was going to do. And I was like, no, that is not scheduling. What you have to do is you have to schedule chunks of time. So if there is a meeting, obviously schedule a meeting, but you have to schedule chunks of work time, chunks of rest time, chunks of time that you're going to be doing, focusing on certain things. All right. And the way to start thinking about scheduling is to schedule according to your energy. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about when during the day are you the most energetic. So for me, the most energetic time is the morning time. So all my deep work takes place in the morning up till 12 o'clock. That is when most of my focused work is done. If I'm working on presentations, if I'm working on podcasts, I'm working on videos, whatever it is that I'm doing, that is the time when I work. Then after 12, 1-ish, there is a sense of lull that starts taking place. Okay. It's around lunchtime. So this is when I typically set up all my meetings. Okay. So meeting so and so, meeting XYZ, because then you're feeding off the other person's energy. You're fine. You're not necessarily using the deep work kind of brain power and energy that you need. Then after that, I schedule in a rest period. I schedule in half an hour of either a power nap, or I schedule in half an hour of going for a walk or doing something that is going to energize me again. Then at around 2:30, 3, 4-ish is when I finish all the mundane tasks. All the tasks that are things that are essential to do, but at the same time, things that are not heavy energy consumers and are boring to do. So for example, all my accounts work I do at that time, all my email work I do at that time. And then towards the end, correct, exactly, emails. And then towards the end of the day is again when I finish off all my meetings. So in that way, it's a beautifully structured schedule around my energy system that I've devised. Now the question is, this might work for me, it might not work for you. What is the kind of energy that you have throughout the day is something that you have to figure out. And the best way of doing this is to have a small post-it note on your table. And on the post-it note, you would write, how much energy do I have right now? And out of 0 to 10. And throughout the day, you keep asking yourself this question: how much energy do I have right now? 0 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 to 10. And you keep noting this down on the side of in a notebook somewhere. So you will get a sense of how much energy you have at what time during the day. Once you do this for a week, you'll get a sense of where your energy lies. And then you put in your high consuming energy tasks when you have high energy. You can put your low consumer energy tasks, your boring work, when you have low energy. And in this way, you're actually being very, very efficient in the way that you're using your energy. Instead of you coming to work full of energy and enthusiasm and then doing something that is boring, not necessarily something that excites you or needs your full energy. Okay. This is a brilliant, brilliant way of mapping out your energy during the day and scheduling it in. Remember, like I did, I scheduled in my rest time also. All right. Now, my schedule might not work for everyone, especially since I typically work from home, have a very different style of working. So most of the time, I finish my work by 9 o'clock. All my deep work, I can start at 6 in the morning and I finish everything by 9:30, 10. Right. Then what I do is I schedule a gym day in. So my gym session inside. So that way I get my break. So this way, what we're doing is we have to figure out where our energy lies and find something that works for us. When you have low energy, what do you do? This is something that comes up as a question, saying, Ashton, there's sometimes when you have so much work to do on that day, but your energy has suddenly gone push. Okay. The key things is that we normally rely on external things to pump us up full of energy. For example, we rely on your chocolates, we rely on our sweets, we rely on all the food that we're eating, and we think that if we have this food, we're going to be full of energy again. But that is not true. Exactly, Sachin. Coffee, you know, we rely on coffee all the time. What coffee does is it does not give us energy, unfortunately. And this is very interesting for us to learn. So, coffee has a molecule called a molecule that becomes an adenosine inhibitor. Adenosine is the hormone or the neurotransmitter that tells us we are tired. It basically goes and blocks that adenosine receptor in our brain. So, coffee makes us think that we are not tired when actually we might be tired. It is that sugar that we put in our coffee that gives us that little boost of energy. But however, you know that sugar gives us a temporary boost of energy and then makes us crash. So as a result, we never have consistent energy during the day, especially if you're constantly having sugary coffee. Exactly, pump and dump, or even better is the where you're tired and you're wired. When you come home after work and you've had so much coffee, so much caffeine is in your system that you come home tired, and then suddenly you're still, like you're wired because of all the caffeine that's been inside, right? So as a result, what you need to do is you need to learn to use this. You need to learn not to rely on coffee. What I would do is I would say don't have coffee after 4. Okay. So after 4, cut out on your coffee because that will affect your sleep. And sleep is the most important form of recovery. So what you're doing is you're basically shooting yourself in the foot when you don't have your when you have your coffee at 4. It takes about 6 hours for the coffee to get absorbed. Saurav says power nap. Saurav, in fact, I've done a podcast on what I call a coffee nap, which is actually a power nap ka baap. What you basically do is you have your coffee, a black coffee, and then immediately go to sleep for 20 minutes. Why? Because by the time the caffeine is getting absorbed in your body, it takes about 20 minutes to do that. You wake up and you're ready, caffeinated for the rest of the working day. So I do this, I have my coffee, go to sleep, wake up in 20 minutes, and I'm fully energized for the rest of that working day. So you can do coffee naps as well, which are power naps plus caffeine. Okay, so that is one very nice way of doing it. Please, one pro tip I'm going to give you: don't get a big hot mug of coffee because that itself will take you 20 minutes to finish. Take a coffee that you can immediately drink and shoot back, and then go and nap. All right, fantastic. So scheduling your day essential. You can schedule it in 2 ways. You can schedule it either using like a Google Calendar or Outlook calendar, or you can schedule it using a book. So one way, if you're not a calendaring person, what I would do is every morning I sit down and I put it in my book on what are the things that I'm going to be doing at what time of the day. And then that's my go-to manual for my schedule. Remember, don't make it necessarily detailed, but make sure that you have the right chunks according to your energy at that point of time. All right, fantastic. Shiva, how are we doing on time? We are doing well. Excellent.
Yes, we're doing very well.
Fantastic. And how are we doing on energy? Are we doing well on energy as well, guys? How is our energy? Is it up, 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 up? All right. So the whole thing is, yes, it's up. UP, UP. It's improved now. High five. It's not Friday, Nina. It's Friday. Yeah, exactly. Love it. I need a coffee now. You have, yeah, it's 4:30. Quickly, last coffee of the day, okay? Right. The last section that I want us to discuss is the thing on how do you delegate your work? Okay, this is a big one because many of us don't know how to delegate. We don't know how to let go. And delegation, to a large extent, is nothing but letting go. It's about trust. Okay, so there are multiple topics that I'm going to be putting into this thing that some are part of delegation, some are a little to the side of it. The first that is a little to the side is learning how to say no. Guys, learning how to say no is one of the most important habits that you have to learn for energy management. Because if you're a person who's a people pleaser, like I was, I would just say yes to everything that somebody said because I didn't want them to dislike me. I didn't want them to feel that Ashton is so bad. I didn't want to hurt them. So I would just keep saying, yes, Ashton, can you do this? Yeah, 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 I'll do this. Whether I had the energy to do this or not, I would still take it on. Okay. Learning how to say no is one of the tasks that is going to completely change your life, change your work, change your home, everything. How do you learn to say no? The first thing is you never say no just like that. Okay. You always say no and give a suggestion what that person could do. Ashton, can you help me out with this? I don't know how to do this particular task. No, I won't do this for you, but I will show you how to do it. Right? I won't do this, but I will send you a YouTube video that explains how to do this particular thing. What you're doing is you're never just saying no, but you're offering a solution. Listen, Ashton, I need your help on this presentation for day after tomorrow. Will you do this tomorrow? No, I'm sorry. My day is packed, but I know that Shiva can do this. Why don't you go speak to him? Right? So what you're doing is you're always giving a suggestion to this person. So you're not coming across as just plain rude. You're not coming across as the bad guy in this, which are mainly the fears that we have when we think of being able to say no. Right? So learning to say no, very, very important. And in fact, one of the habits that I used to tell people who are people pleasers, and if you're a people pleaser, I would suggest you try this out as well, is to say at least one no a day to somebody. Okay. So find something to say no. Ashton, can you pass the salt? No. Done. It's over for the day. Okay. So what you have to do is just get into the habit and practice of saying no. Sort of exactly. You can say nahi also. In fact, you can all add no, 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 no right now if you don't, if you want to learn how to stop being a people pleaser and learn to say no to people. It is a art form that we have to create. Sorry,
Ashton,
Shiva.
the best example should we wind up the session? No.
Love it. Love it. In fact, during the question answer is going to be so much fun. I can't wait for us to discuss this properly. All right. So guys, we're almost coming to the end of me talking. It's going to be Q&A. So think about what it is that you want to ask and let's have a nice, fantastic discussion. Okay. So the first is in delegation is learning how to say no, giving it to somebody else to do. The second aspect of delegation is to learn the simple concept of not doing things that others are better at to do than you, or at least equal to you to do. Okay. So if someone can do something as well as you or better than you, please give them the task to do. Okay. Don't keep doing things unnecessarily. Don't keep doing things saying that, no, I will get better at it. Fine. Get better at it. But if it's about energy management, give it to somebody else to do. And the last aspect of delegation, can we say no to our boss? Of course, you can say no to your boss. But like I said, are you saying no with a valid reason and a solution? Okay. The second part is important. If you're coming and saying no, that's not going to work. There are many times that you'll have to say no to your boss because there are times when it won't necessarily be feasible to do. So you always have to add that to that person. Okay. So like, no, but why don't we do this instead? Or no, and we can do this instead. All right. So that is a way to handle it with a boss. The last aspect of delegation is learning how to trust. This is where most of us fail in delegation. We're so particular about how we're going to give this to a person or particular person to do. How will they be able to do this, that we don't trust that person. And if we don't learn to trust that person, there's no way that we'll be able to delegate effectively. We will never become good managers because we'll only continue to be good executives. Okay, that is the key. Management is all about learning to train and then trust, train and then trust, train and then trust. And that is how delegation takes place. So learning this art of delegation, training and then trusting is so, so, so important for us. As we grow through life, if we are not learning to trust, we're not going to learn how to rely on our team. If we never learn how to rely on our team, we're just going to be single hero people, right? And that's never going to work out. We're all going to have to do this, and we're all going to have to learn how to delegate. All right. The last thought that I want to leave with us is, I hope that I've drilled it into your head that from now onwards, don't ever look at your watch and say, I don't have time, right? Always say that I'm running out of energy right now. I don't have the energy to do this right now. We all have the time in the world. If you think that you're running out of time, you're coming into this world with a sense of scarcity, not enough. And when you're working from a sense of scarcity, you're constantly working from a place of less, not enough. It's going to run away. You're coming from a negative space, and everything you do is going to be negative, right? I don't have time. I'm sorry, I don't have time. In fact, in our office, we banned the word I'm busy. We either say, I'm sorry, but this is not currently a priority for me. This is not something that I want to do right now. But we never say, I'm not busy. I am too busy to do this. All right. So if you create these kinds of principles in your life, if you create these kind of boundaries in your life, if you learn how to recover this energy that you're spending throughout the day so that you have more energy to spend, that you're not operating constantly on an empty tank, full tank of fuel, that you learn how to do that deep work that is needed with focus, that you learn that inner work that you have to do so that you're not constantly just draining with thoughts, useless thoughts in your head, that you learn to delegate and you learn to schedule. If you put all of this together, there is no way that you will not be able to achieve all the things that you want. All those feelings of overwhelm will disappear because now you have the energy to do everything. Okay. And with that, I want to give you all a lot of energy for the weekend and for the rest of the week. Now, Shiva, I think we are fantastic on our time and we can jump into our Q&A.
Absolutely, Ashdin. Thank you so much for leaving us with all those thoughts today. I've made a lot of notes for myself. Before we move on to the Q&A, just a small request to all the participants today that there is a poll on your screen. Please take a couple of minutes to finish the poll while we are doing the Q&A. It will be live until the end of the Q&A. Please take a couple of minutes. It will help us curate more sessions like this and bring in wonderful trainers and speakers like Ashton to speak about a lot of other different topics that will help you be productive or help you be healthy mentally, physically, and a lot of other things as well. Thank you. So we'll quickly move on to Q&A. Request everyone has a question to ask to Ashton to raise your hands. I can move you to the panel and then you can speak to Ashton directly, or you can also put your questions in the chat box or the Q&A section. Anything that is related to managing time, managing energy, and also how to sport a primal look. Ashton will give you that answer.
How to grow a beard.
How to grow a beard. Ashton, we have one question in the Q&A section. It's from an anonymous attendee. So how can we detach the emotion? Tried many times but didn't succeed.
Lovely. So, anonymous, the way to think about this is to not detach from the emotion, but to actually feel the emotion. Many often we don't know what it is that we're feeling, so we don't know what to do about it. So, I think, Shiva, had we done this in the last workshop where I shared about the feelings wheel? But anyways, let me talk about this again. There is an entire wheel of feelings, a diagram of feelings that you can get from the internet. Just search feelings wheel or emotions wheel, and maybe somebody can put a link up there. What this does, it tells you all the different kinds of emotions that we actually have and we feel. But very often we cannot verbalize them, we cannot share them because we don't know how to name them. So learning how to name your emotions is the first step of learning how to deal with your emotions and feelings. The way to do this is then figure out, what do I do? Now, normally, if I ask you to name emotions, how many things will you come across? Maybe you will say angry, happy, sad, upset, depressed. But then what about the feeling of betrayal? Ah, now betrayal is a different feeling altogether. It is not part of anger. What about I'm feeling alone, right? So if you can name your feeling, you can do something about your feeling. And hence, it is not about detaching yourself away from feelings, because feelings are very, very useful things, but it's actually about deep diving into them and solving for them, understanding what the issue is. Made sense? I hope that helps you, Anonymous.
And we have another question from Avinash in the chat box saying, when we get multiple work at same time and when it's high priority for all of them, how do we prioritize this task?
Lovely. So, in fact, Avinash, what Avinash has described is called the feeling of overwhelm. When everything seems as important as everything else. When you have a very large to-do list but do not know where to start, is when your whole feelings of overwhelm come from. I'm surprised nobody has asked me how do we deal with overwhelm as a question here. Right? So, Avinash, this is for you. The way to think about it is there is always going to be something that is more important than the other. And if there isn't, you have to flip a coin and decide. Okay. Because if everything is equal, then it doesn't matter, right? Which you take on first. But what you do is you complete the task that you start. Avinash, this is critical. Okay. Otherwise, we do 50% of the first task, 50% of the second task, 50% of the third task, and all that is still part of our to-do list. And we wasted our energy, we wasted our time. So as a result, what you do is you rank five. If five equally important things have come, you rank them by order or randomness, and then you start doing them one after the other. Don't leave any task half done.
Great. I usually rank them on the order of losing my job.
Which one is going to make it?
We have a raised hand from Chandrakala in the audience.
Lovely.
Chandrakala, if you can hear me, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
And more
Chandrakala
marks if you
ji.
can put on your video as well. Then full
Yes.
marks.
No response. We'll move to Puja while Chandrakala
Okay.
comes in. So Pooja has a question. Say most of the people believe that if they wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, they can do everything on time. Is it the time factor or the energy that they have probably in the morning for doing these things?
Lovely. Puja, it's not the time or the energy actually. It is the peace of mind that you have. So, for example, many of us wake up at 5 or 6 because that is the time when the rest of the world is sleeping. So, it is not that I've got 3 hours more than the person who's waking up at 8 o'clock. That is not the thing, because I'll also be going to sleep 3 hours before the person who wakes up at 8 o'clock. It is the fact that at 5, 6, there are lesser distractions to eat up my energy, right? I have more time to focus on what I'm doing, less need for multitasking and all of that comes with it. So, which is why I wake up at 5. So, I wake up at 5, I finish my meditation, I finish my journaling, and then at 6 o'clock, I start all my creative work. And that I finish by about 8 o'clock, and all my creative work is done. If I'm not waking up at 5, if I'm traveling somewhere, and if I'm waking up later, the same thing applies. But whenever I wake up, I add that in. What's important is that many of us are either morning people or night people. Some people function better at night. 12 to 2 is the time frame that people function at that. If that is the time when you're functioning at your best, please do it. Don't try waking up at 5. Work from 12 to 2. However, work from 12 to 2. Don't Netflix from 12 to 2. Right? Don't be distracted from 12 to 2. Do your deep work at that point of time.
Correct. One interesting question here, Ashton, from Saurav Mittal, who is saying, "What if Netflix is just keeping me from stressing? So not doing anything is more energy draining. Hence, the best of the worlds is to stay engaged in things like Netflix or Insta. So
So,
it's like
Saurav,
these are keeping them from stressing."
this is called escapism. This is not called relaxation. Okay, you're escaping your stress to these aspects. And in fact, when we talk about stress and we do, stress management and stuff like this, we learn that it is not about managing your stress in terms of distractions, but it is about de-stressing. In fact, I never use the word stress management for anything. I always say de-stressing. Are you de-stressing yourself? That means, are you letting go of the stress? So journaling is de-stressing, while Netflix is still managing your stress, but it's not going anywhere. It's still there only. When you switch off the Netflix, all those thoughts are going to come rushing back to you. But now they're going to come rushing back to you when you're lying down on your bed looking at your ceiling. You're not going to get your sleep. You're just going to start looking at all the cracks that you have in your ceiling wall, or on top of the ceiling in your paint. And then you're going to think about all the cracks that are there now in your life. And it's going to get into one negative spiral. So I would strongly suggest that you learn techniques and habits on dealing with the stress that you have in a healthy way, so that you don't hold on to it anymore instead of escaping it using Netflix.
Thanks, Ashton, for that answer. Uh, Taking that answer for myself also. So,
Noted.
Adinarayana says how to stick to techniques like Pomodoro.
So two interesting ways that I can help you. One is obviously start, but the two ways that you can do this is to have an accountability partner. So say you're sitting in a cubicle, the person next to you can become your accountability partner, and both of you will say, all right, now focus work time, huh? Now focus work time, no talking to each other. And 1, 2, 3, start. And both of you are doing the Pomodoro technique at the same time. Okay, then both of you can take a break at the same time. So that is one way of doing this. The second way is, for example, the negative reinforcement. That means you didn't do it, so start it off again. But I honestly think that getting a buddy to do this with you makes a lot of sense. Also in office, one other thing that you can do is make one small placard that you can put on your table saying, "In deep work, do not disturb right now." That helps.
Okay. So Nina also has a question saying, more often than not, we are encouraged to grab every opportunity. Wouldn't that lead to a burnout, especially for a perfectionist?
Arey, khalas, Nina, if you're a perfectionist, that means nothing's ever getting finished. That is the definition of a perfectionist, because you're constantly waiting for it to become better and better and better. And that perfectionism is going to lead to overwhelm, because nothing's going off your to-do list. And at the same time, if you're trying to get every opportunity, you're just doing nothing but adding to your to-do list. So, Nina, that is a pure recipe for disaster. So it starts off by first perfectionism, putting that to the side, learning how to deal with it, learning how to say no to every opportunity that comes. Because if you take every opportunity, technically you're doing nothing completely. It's like in marketing and all we say, right? If you're everything for everyone, you're nothing for no one. Same principle applies here. You can't be doing everything. You have to focus down on something that is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. In this case, your buck being your energy.
Nina says, story of my life.
There you go.
So we have another question from Kavya Narsimha saying how to deal with the mental occupation of thoughts, like you explained. Someone said something, we tend to think of it at the back of the mind all the time.
Lovely. So the first thing that you do is, whenever you have a situation like this, when someone said something to you and it's running around in your head, you have to take action against that. Okay. So you either call up the person and say, hey, listen, you said this to me. What is it that you meant? I think there's been a miscommunication. You don't start off as a fight, but you start off as a conversation. So in fact, there are 3 C's that you follow. So first one is converse. So you talk about it, talk it through. Why you called me stupid? Arey, you were behaving stupid that day, na? Yeah, actually I was behaving stupid. I had too much to drink. Okay, fine, let it go. If it is not resolved through conversation, then you confront. Okay, then you become upset. Then you fight. And then, yes, I'm giving you permission to fight, because sometimes you have to stand up for yourself also. Everything is not hunky-dory. Sometimes you need to confront. If you don't confront, you still spend the time sitting in the bathroom saying, I should have said that, I should have said that, I should have said that. Okay, so confrontation sometimes is important. And then if nothing is possible, if you can't convince, if you can't converse, if you can't confront, then you forgive. And then forgiveness is a long chapter on how to do it and what we need to do. Otherwise, you're constantly going to think about it and it's going to occupy so much brain power. Not worth it.
So our next question is from Shrikant, who's saying, learning is also always important. I have so many in my mind to learn new things, but none of it comes to execution. As in, you're on mute.
So, Shrikant, the way to think about it is it's not getting done because it's not being scheduled. Okay. If you put it in your schedule and you rank it in part of your priorities, 100% it has to get done. So, what I do is I actually have 1 hour of learning every day. In fact, right now we're at, I think we finished 67 books that I've read this year. Right? The goal is 100. So, learning is an important part of the process for me. Right. And there are years when I'll just read maybe 5 books repeatedly, 5 hardcore books that I really want to absorb. And then there are years like this when I just want lots of information and I want my brain to grow. So I read 100 books. So you have to schedule in this learning time. And I would say that learning is far more important than anything else, especially since we're all people with jobs. I keep telling people is that you never have a salary problem. You always have a skill problem. And how do you grow your skills? You grow your skills by learning. So it is that it's never that you're underpaid. It's always that you're underskilled. If you want to get a promotion, you have to get the right skills for that job. So how do you get those right skills? Through learning, either through a mentor or through books or through online courses, any of those things. At which point of time I can happily plug in online courses at Awesome 180. Please go learn about habit coaching, learn about how to do how to learn habits, how to create them in your life, so that all these questions, especially like the question that was before Shrikant, it's easy to start but not stick to it. How to be consistent in your life. All these are also skills that you have to learn. You'll notice that the people who grow the fastest, all your athletes are insanely consistent at what they do. Right? It's their skill set.
So moving on to the next one. This is from Mitesh again. He says, how to manage same energy every day.
So you'll never have the same energy every day. You will have the same energy if you get your night routine and your morning routine correct. Okay. Apart from that, there are so many different things that affect our energy. It could be, an event that happened at home, or a fight that took place at home, or something that happened, the food that you ate. All of this affects your energy. You never have the same energy. But the idea is to know how you're feeling so that you can better manage your energy.
Taking one from the Q&A section here, Ashdin, is from Rishabh Gupta. He says, most of the days I feel my energy is lowest at morning, even after a good 7-8 hours of sleep at night. And what can I do to make it right? As the day passes, I start to feel more energized. I want the same energy level while starting my day.
Okay. So Rishabh, there could be 2-3 things that are affecting you. One is that you might have good 7-8 hours of sleep, but you might be waking up at the wrong time. So what's interesting is that our body has a 90-minute sleep cycle. That means we go through our deep sleep, light sleep cycles every 90 minutes. Now, if we wake up in the middle of our deep sleep cycle, we're going to wake up groggy. We're going to wake up, feeling, we're going to wake up feeling lethargic. So many of us wake up saying that, oh, I need to go back to bed, right? That is how we're going to be feeling. You have to calculate in your 90-hour increments when you set up your alarm. Okay. So for example, don't wake up at 6 o'clock. Don't. So for example, 8 hours of sleep is wrong because 8 hours is not in a 90 cycle thing. 7.5 is 90 cycles. 6 is 90 cycles. 6.5 is not. So you will slowly, when you play around with this, learn what makes you feel good when you wake up in the morning. The second thing is don't use an alarm as much as possible to wake up, because then your body will naturally wake up at the right time. Finally, Rishabh, if you wake up and if you are having a breakfast that is full of carbohydrates, so, lots of, idlis, lots of cereals, All of those things are going to give you a spike in your blood sugar. And by the time you reach your office, that blood sugar spike will have dropped and you will feel tired by the time you enter office. So I know many people who enter office tired is because of the breakfast that they've eaten in the morning.
I think we have it. Got it. I think there's a tough question, Aston, for you. A couple of people are asking is how do we manage our energy levels with kids around, toddlers around?
Lovely. So, in fact, day before yesterday, I was meeting a friend of mine who just had a baby. Okay. Her baby is now 10 months old. All right. So I'm giving you the 10-month perspective on things. And she is a travel blogger. So now travel blogger is meaning that she has to travel around the world. In 10 months, this baby has gone to 8 different countries. I was like, what? I've not been to 8 different countries. Like, so, but the point is that what she did was she said that she took a decision. She said, I will not live my life according to the baby. The baby will live her life according to me. It is a fundamental shift. And she said, I know lots of people will say you're a bad mom, you're a bad this, you're a bad that because of this. But the idea is that the child can change to your um, principles or the things that you want to do. And the best example of this is that children are nothing but animals and creatures of habits. Children love habits. Children love following habits. In fact, I've written a book on children's habits that's going to be published next year because children follow habits very, very well. You will all notice that how do you put a child to sleep? You have a nighttime routine, which is basically a set of habits that you put. And the child notices, whenever I get a bath, whenever I'm in my pajamas, whenever we do a little play and storytelling, it is time to go to sleep. That means in their mind, they know that when this happens, this happens, this happens. Okay. In the same way, we have to create these habit cycles for the kids and we have to stick to them. And it doesn't matter what age group they are because they learn and are malleable very well at this time. Once in a while, there'll be situations where there is a flare up because somebody said something wrong and all of that. That is part of life. But if you can maintain this habit structure for these children, you'll realize that not only is their life better because they know what's coming next, your life is better as well. In fact, we were talking about accountability partners earlier when we were talking about Pomodoro, and I was saying that use your colleague who sits next to you. Children are mind-blowing accountability partners. I once had a client who we were creating her sleep routine. And I was telling her that, at night, instead of putting on the bright lights, you light candles everywhere. You switch off all your electronic devices and you basically start reading. And I told to tell her son the same thing, that he also has to follow it along with her. And he loved the process that he would tell, Mama, now it's time for us to put on the candles. And they made it an entire fun game play thing. That habit that would have been tough to instill became something that was fun to do. And the child was reminding the mom that it's now time to do this. Now it's time to do this. And I think it was a beautiful way in which they created these habits together. So it is a shift of mindset also. If you think that it's going to be a pain, it will be. If you think that you have to give up your life for them, it will be. Or you can decide that I'm going to have my life and create these routines for both of us.
That's a great answer, actually.
Thank you. It is a difficult one. I know, especially during the lockdown, it was so difficult for suddenly being at home. The children are also at home. They're not going to school. I know what happened because I did lots of workshops during that time for, corporates. And they're like, Ashdin, how do I work with this child? Normally, I would be at work. They would be at school. So routine is critical. In fact, one of the best routines for working from home was telling the child that, okay, Mummy is now going to work, daddy is now going to work, and you sit in one place and work only from one place. So the child knows that when you're sitting in that place, do not disturb you.
Amazing. So now that we've dealt with the tough one, now we are going into the funny one. Right. So there's an anonymous attendee saying how to deal with laziness. Like I feel lazy all the day. I'm even lazy to invest my energy into something.
So laziness is not about the way that we think about it. Okay. Um, this is the story that I normally tell when I think about laziness. So on my farm, I have a dog called Victoria. Okay, she's this beautiful white dog that we saved from a shelter. And while we are eating, she's lying down, lazing, she's rolling in the grass, she's just sleeping. And you look at her and say, wow, what a life. You're so lazy, you don't do anything, you don't do it. But suddenly, if there is a random cow or a goat that walks into our property, suddenly her ears are up, full focus, barking, 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 running after that. Where did that laziness go? Right? It wasn't that she was lazy, it's just that she hadn't found something worth taking action for. All right. So if you haven't found something worth taking action for, by all means be lazy. It's perfectly fine. Right. But once you find something worth taking action for, your ears will also prick up. Your eyes will also get focused and you will also go after it. So laziness is not just about low energy. Laziness is a function of not having a direction in our life.
In answer again. So I think that brings to the end of the session, Hassan. Thank you so much for wonderfully answering all of those questions coming at you with such lovely answers. I think everyone who's asked the question and also the other people who are listening to you is taking away a lot of things like from the session and also from the Q&A. Thank you so much for doing this for us. And also, I would like to thank our audience today for being such a wonderful audience. They've been engaging throughout. They've been asking wonderful questions, meaningful questions in the Q&A. I hope all of you have something to take away from the session today. And I am also really, really glad to tell you that next week we are doing a stand-up comedy session next Friday. So I hope that you all will come in and grace the occasion. Thank you so much, and that's the end for today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions, get in touch with me and we can take it forward. See you guys. Thank you, Shiva. Fantastic.
Thank you so much.